All right, welcome to our explainer. We're going to do something a little different today. We're going to travel back in time. So I want you to imagine you're not listening to this on a device, but you're actually sitting on a grassy hillside in 1st century Galilee, and you're about to hear a new teaching that will completely change how you see the world.
So let's start with a really modern idea, virtue signaling. It feels like a term that was invented for social media, right? But that desire, that impulse to make sure everyone sees you doing the right thing, oh, that is as old as humanity. And that teacher on the hillside, he had a lot to say about it.
So let's put you back in that scene. As a student, you'd know that religious life is incredibly public. I mean, there's this huge cultural pressure to show just how righteous you are. You do good deeds, you pray, you fast, and you do it all to be seen by men. It's just how the game is played. It's how you get respect.
And this is the first thing you hear that just stops you in your tracks. The teacher, Jesus, doesn't have a problem with giving to the poor or praying. No, not at all. He's going after the why. He's pointing out this massive difference between just having an image of righteousness for everyone else to see and actually having a heart of righteousness that only God sees.
As you keep listening, it's like a light bulb goes on. You suddenly start to see your whole world differently. You realize the 3 biggest acts of piety, giving, prayer, and fasting, they've all been turned into this kind of public theater. It's like faith has become a stage, and everybody's just an actor playing a part.
And that brings us to this key word he uses, hypocrite. Now, in our world, that's a huge insult. But in 1st century Greek, a hypocrite was, well, it was just an actor, someone playing a role on a stage. So the criticism isn't that you're failing to live up to a standard. It's that you are knowingly performing for applause.
Let's look at how this plays out. First up, giving. The teacher talks about people who basically sound a trumpet before they give to charity. Now that's probably a metaphor, but you get the idea. They make a huge deal out of it. And the modern version? I mean, it's almost too obvious, right? It's that social media post about a donation that feels a little less about the cause and a little more about broadcasting how generous you are. Next, he talks about prayer. And you've seen this. Guys who make sure they're on a busy street corner right when the call to prayer happens so they can stand there and make these long, loud, impressive prayers for everyone to hear. The point is, their audience isn't God, it's the people walking by. It's a timeless temptation, really, using something spiritual to get social points. And then there's fasting. The really pious people would make sure you knew they were suffering for God. They'd mess up their hair, look all sad and disheveled, just to make sure their sacrifice was noticed. And this one hits home today, doesn't it? It's so similar to how we sometimes broadcast our personal struggles, not really for support, but for the attention and sympathy it brings. Now, for every single one of these public performances, the teacher has the exact same punchline. And in the original Greek, it's just fascinating. The phrase, they have their reward, uses the word apekin. It's a business term. It literally means paid in full. The implication is just stunning. The applause you get from people, that's your payment. That's it. The transaction is closed, there's nothing else coming. But then he gives this completely radical alternative. He says, go ahead and do all these things. Give, pray, fast, but do them in secret. Do them where no one else sees. Do them for an audience of one. Because the reward you'll get from your Father, who sees what's done in secret, that's so much bigger than a little bit of temporary praise from a crowd.
Okay, so the teaching takes a turn here. It pivots from looking at what other people are doing to asking a really deep, personal question directly to you, the student on the hillside. It comes down to this. Who or what are you really loyal to? Where is your heart really?
He lays out a really clear choice between 2 kinds of treasure. You can spend your life storing up treasure here on earth. Money, status, a good reputation, but all of that stuff is temporary. Moths eat your nice clothes, rust destroys your metals, thieves break in and steal. Or you can store up treasure in heaven, and that's totally secure. It's permanent. No one can ever take it away from you.
And then he gives a name to this rival treasure, mammon. And it's not just about cash. It's the personification of materialism itself. It's presented as this active power, a force that's trying to win your heart and demands your total loyalty, almost like a false god.
And that leads to this incredibly stark black and white choice. He says, it's impossible to serve 2 masters. You just can't. You'll end up loving one and hating the other. You can't hedge your bets. You cannot dedicate your life to God and to the pursuit of stuff. One is going to win.
Now, this all sounds really noble. But if you're that student, you've got a very real, practical question. If I stop focusing so much on money and possessions, how am I going to survive? I mean, this is a time when a few days out of work could literally mean starvation. So the anxiety about food and clothes, it is very, very real.
The teacher answers this very real anxiety with poetry, using the world right there around you. He says, just look at the birds. They don't stress out about farming, they don't have barns, but God feeds them. Aren't you way more valuable than a bird? Or think about the wildflowers. They don't work or weave their own clothes, but even the great King Solomon in all his glory wasn't dressed as beautifully as one of them.
And then he asks this really simple but really sharp question: can any one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? And the answer is just so powerful. 0. Zilch. Worry is totally useless. It achieves nothing. In fact, it's probably going to take time away from your life, not add to it.
So what's the solution? It's not to just ignore your basic needs. It's to completely reorder your priorities. The big instruction is this: seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness. And the promise that follows is that all these things, the food, the clothes you're worried about, they'll be given to you as well. Stop making survival your number one goal, and instead, make God's purpose your number one goal.
Okay, so let's press pause on the 1st century and zoom back to right now. How does all this ancient wisdom land in our digital age? An age that feels like it's built almost entirely on performance, on image, and on the pursuit of, mammon.
You know, the technology has changed completely, but the human heart? Not so much. The stage isn't a street corner anymore, it's the little screen in your hand. But the fundamental challenge is exactly the same: choosing a real, authentic inner life that's focused on what lasts, over a carefully performed outer life that's just chasing the temporary applause of the crowd.
So we'll end with the question that this whole teaching really leaves us with. In a world that is obsessed with performance, in a world that rewards being seen, what does it mean to have a secret place? A place where your best and most important actions are done for an audience of one, where your worth isn't counted in likes, and where your heart can finally find its true, lasting treasure.